The Europa Universalis 5 Balkan map mode is here with all of its layers, and we're going to do a deep analysis, as well as I'm going to give you a little bit of a historical background, and I will of course give historical sources, books, and authors. You'll find all of these sources in the description below if you like to check for yourself. Where is Moldova? Now, I know some of you saying you saw Moldova in the previous dev diary, and now this is just the horde. Why is there no Moldova here? Well, that is because, historically speaking, Moldova was founded as a Hungarian march by Dragos I in 1346, a few years after the start date of Europa Universalis 5. Remember, we start in April 1337, so they do mention in the dev diary that there's going to be an event that will spawn in Moldova in the 1340s. Prior to Dragos establishing the Moldovan March in what we know as the historical territory of Moldova, it wasn't direct controlled lands by the Golden Horde. Far from it. In fact, we have actual evidence, letters from the local lords in those areas, which were Romanians. By the way, culture-wise, it should not be Wallachian, because that culture never existed, but we'll get to that later in the dev diary. The Romanians in this area did refer to the area as Moldova prior to 1346. It was not unified. That's the important aspect to take from this. It was a multitude of smaller entities that together were part of the Moldovan area. There was parts of it in the north and into the west were under Hungarian influence, not necessarily directly controlled, but they did have some influence from Hungary. The eastern parts did have some influence from the Golden Horde. That is true. That's the reason why Moldovan armies had Mongolian tactics. Moldovans were known for being horse riders in the Middle Ages, which is weird because the Wallachians were completely opposite. So that's another really interesting depiction because they had a lot of influences from the Horde. However, my take on this is that you shouldn't have these lands as directly owned lands from the Golden Horde and then all of a sudden Moldova pops out, because that's not accurate. It should be either option one, a multitude of smaller entities, and you can honestly just make these up because the reality is that we don't actually know the names of any of these entities, but we do know that they existed because we have certain letters that do depict the lands of XYZ and the lands of XYZ, which were Moldovan lords within these particular lands. What happened when Hungary established the March of Moldova? They simply pushed away all the influence of the Golden Horde in the Moldovan area from the various little entities and unified all the entities under Dragos, making as such a centralized authority that would be easier for the Hungarian crown to control and use as a buffer state between the Kingdom of Hungary and the Golden Horde. And also, some of these Moldovans were under a vassalage or influenced or allied with the Poles and the Volhynians. Why do we know that? In 1342, 4 years prior to the establishment of Moldova officially under Dragos, there were some Moldovans that fought on the side of the Poles, and this is accounted by a Polish chronicler, Jan Długosz. He mentions that the Moldovans fought alongside the Poles against the Margraviate of Brandenburg, against my beloved Brandenburg, but that's aside from the point. And he mentions that these were Vlachs, because that's the term that the Germanic world and other Catholic-styled kingdoms would refer to the Romanians at the time. So it would be Vlach, it would not be Wallachia. Wallachia, it's a modern term, let's say. The reality is that the nation of Wallachia called itself Țara Românească, which means or Terra Romana, actually, that would be the historical name. On maps, historical maps, it is shown as Terra Romana, which means land of the Romans, because, anyway, that's going way deep into history. The point is that this is the English version of the Wallachia that we use today, as well as the word Vlach was a Germanic origin word to denominate Romanians within this particular area. To make a little bit more of a small addendum, why is that? Well, the first encounter between the Teutonic Germans, so the first Germans, and the Latins was an encounter between the Teutons and the Volcae, which was a Latinized Germanic tribe in the northern parts of Italy. Every single Romanized style, or people that looked Roman, spoke some sort of Latin language, they called something akin to Volcae. That's why the Wallonians, which were Romanized and spoke a Latin-based language, are called called Valonian. That's why Vlachs are called Vlachs. That's why the Welsh are called Welsh, because the Anglo-Saxons that arrived on the British Isles encountered the Welsh, which were obviously not Romans, but they wore Roman dressing, they behaved like Romans because they had been under Roman rule for hundreds of years, and that's why they actually called both the Celtic speakers and the actual Romans, they called them all Welsh when they encountered them, the Anglo-Saxons encountered them on the British Isles. It's the same for every single denomination, or for most denominations in any case. The point is that that's the Germanized / English version of Romanian, because English is a Germanic language. If we were to be accurate with the culture map mode, it would be Romanian, not Wallachian. That makes no sense, by the way. Also, Transylvanian being a separate culture makes no sense, but we'll get to the cultures later. Let's talk about the political map mode first and foremost. If you are able, I highly recommend to read Descriptio Moldave, which is a book written by Dimitrie Cantemir, the one and only. He was the Prince of Moldova in the 1700s. He was one of the Fanariot lord. In any case, everybody in Romania knows Dimitrie Cantemir, and everybody in Romania knows Descriptio Moldave. It is written 300 years ago. It is the description of the realms of Moldova from every single early historical source that he had 300 years ago, and it is really, really detailed, really great. Highly recommend if you ever have the time to read it. Another really great source is The History of the Romanian People by Adec Xenopol, which is one of the greatest writers and historians in my opinion, and he talks not only about Moldova, Wallachia, the Bulgarian parts, Hungary, and a few other areas from this particular time frame and other time frames, because his book covers quite a few eras and goes in quite deep detail with a lot of references itself to old letters and whatever evidence we might still have. Now, when it comes to Hungary, I personally would argue that Transylvania should also be shown as a vassal of sorts, because in 1337 Transylvania was what is known as an autonomous voivodeship. That means that it was ruled by a voivod, which was a type of governor assigned by the Hungarian crown, and this governor would basically rule over Transylvania and would provide the manpower and the taxes from the Transylvanian area to the Hungarian crown. Now, that being said, if you don't want to make it a separate entity, that's also fine, because to be fair, it was pretty well integrated within the Kingdom of Hungary, even though it was an autonomous voivodeship still. So I guess it depends on the levels of vassalage that you have in EU5, which we don't know yet. So if there were different levels, I guess it would be one of the more integrated levels. I also want to mention, and this is really important, every single map we have of the 13, 12, 1100s of the Kingdom of Hungary, every single one of them shows Transylvania name on the region with a little bit of a hash around, and the same for Bosnia, Croatia, and so on. So it wouldn't show that if it was extremely integrated. It would just show the Kingdom of Hungary. So keep that in mind as well, please, because that is actually very important in my opinion. Now that we talked about this, let's also discuss the fact that Austria is disgusting. Look at that. What is that, man? Why is Passau owned a little bit next to Vienna? Who thought that's a good idea? I'm just kidding. That's cool. I like to see that. Going a little bit into the south here, we've got some really interesting bits. Absolutely delicious map. Epirus is going to be a vassal of the Byzantines in 1337. Albania should be independent. Serbia should, by the way, be one of the stronger nations here. Just a few years later, they proclaim the Serbian Empire when they munch on to a lot of lands of the Byzantine Empire, due to the fact that, yeah, you guessed it, the Byzantines had another civil war, which led to them getting even weaker. There were like a lot of civil wars in the 1300s, and in every single century for that matter in the Byzantine Empire. One of those civil wars let the Serbians have an easy time of munching into Macedonia and all those areas of the Byzantine Empire, alongside letting the Ottomans munch into Europe and giving way to the conquest of the Balkans eventually by the Ottoman Empire. Now we do have Venice in Corfu, as we have in 1444. Salona, Athens, and Neopatria should be under the crown of Aragon, more precisely under the crown of Sicily, which is a part of the greater Barcelona household, or Arago, whatever you want to call it. We do have some old remnants around here as well from the Crusader state, and we do have the Venetians also establishing themselves around here with a little bit of a port here, another island there, another little bit of island here next to Naxos, which technically should be Byzantine lands. Achaia and Morea also should be Byzantine lands, and we also have some footholds of the Genoese here, one right next to the Saruhanids and another one here next to Aidinids, with the good old city of Philadelphia that I mentioned in my previous Anatolian political map mode. So we're not going to go into the Anatolian bits right now because we've already talked about that quite a little bit. You have a link to that video in the description if you're interested in what I'm talking about. Also, to take note of, I like the new color of the trade city of Ragusa, I guess it would be. I'm not sure if it would be Ragusa or if it would be named something else, but yeah, these would be the Dalmatians here in this little schnappledoop of a city-state, I guess you could say. Now let's actually go back into the dev diary a little bit, shall we? Pavia says, greetings and welcome to another Tinto Maps. This week we're going to look at Carpathia and the Balkans. It will likely be an interesting region to take a look at with a lot of passion involved. Oh yeah, we're starting World War III here, boys. We're starting the Third Balkan War, okay? So I'll just make an initial friendly reminder to keep a civil discussion as in the latest Tinto Maps. It's easier for us to read and gather your feedback and improve the region in a future iteration. Now he talks about the political map modes. He says that Carpathia and the Balkans is a very interesting situation. Kingdom of Hungary stands as the most powerful in 1337. That is correct, but that only happened after the recovery of the royal power enforced by Charles I, Robert of the House of Anjou, who reigned in the powerful Hungarian nobility. To the south, the power that is on the rise is the Kingdom of Serbia, true, yeah, with Stefan Uroš Dusan, who has his eyes set on his neighbors to expand his power. The Byzantine Empire, meanwhile, is in a difficult situation. Internal struggles ended in the Andronicus III being crowned sole emperor at the cost of dividing the realm. Both Serbia and Bulgaria have in the past pressed over in the bordering lands, whilst the Ottomans have very recently conquered Nicomedia, is in days recently. The control over the southern Balkans is also very fractioned, with the faction ruling over Albania, the despotate of Empress, whilst nominally under the Byzantines as a vassal, Athens, Neopatria, Salona as vassals of the Aragonese King of Sicily, that's true, Anjou protectorates over Achaia and Naxos, and only nominal control of the Byzantines over South Morea. Also noticeable presence of Republic of Venice and Genoa, several outposts. Final note, Moldova not shown in the map, we removed it, and it's most likely gonna spawn through a chain of events in 1340. I would say for this, that's not a bad idea, but make it accurate, the initial situation where there's little minor pre-entities that are not basically just directly owned land by the Golden Horde, because that's not accurate whatsoever. And if you are gonna go down this inaccurate way of doing things, at least divide it between Galicia, Volhynia, Hungary, and the Golden Horde, not just give it all to the Golden Horde, because the Golden Horde had no influence over the western and the northern parts of Moldova at this time period. So these other dynasties here, pretty standard: Palaiologos, Stratsimir, Basarab, Anjou, Kotromanik, Nemanjic, and so on. I'm not going to continue because I'm going to probably butcher a lot of these names, aren't I? Pretty funny to see Anjou basically in Naples, Albania, Croatia, Hungary, Achaia as well. The Anjou do fuck, boys. They do fuck. I also mentioned that they're also the rulers of Cephalonia. They're truly invested in a push for supremacy over the region. True. Apart from that, each country is ruled by a different dynasty, except for Athens and Neopatria, ruled by the House of Aragon Barcelona. Yes, sir. Now, these are the locations, and I'm not sure if I should say this because I like this layout, because I really like this layout, but this is not accurate. You know why this is not accurate? And this is something that is going to be a little bit of ludi lore that you guys are going to learn from me. I'm from Kudal. So this province location here, by the way, it's Kudal B, not Kudal V. That makes no sense, by the way. Kudal, which is where I'm originally from. That's where my parents are from. My mom is from anyway. It didn't exist in 1337. I know for a fact that. So Kudalbi was established because we know our own history. It's a commune in Galatz, in the county of Galatz, and we know that it was established by soldiers of Stephen the Great after Stephen the Great needed to repopulate the southern bits of Moldova because he destroyed a lot of it and depopulated it in his fights with the Ottoman Empire. He sent 6 of his soldiers to establish the little trading outpost initially of Kudalb, and that little trading outpost grew into an actual village and then eventually into a commune, and now it's shrinking down in size because everybody's living in the UK. But that's aside from the point. In 1337, it did not exist. Stephen the Great established it as one of his many decrees. So yeah, that being said, keep it. I would like to see Kudalbi on the map. I was really happy to see this. I genuinely was super happy to see this. That was really good. I'm obviously gonna pay a little bit more attention to Moldova because this is where I'm from, right? And let's check. Suceava is a little bit big for my eyes here. I feel like you could definitely split Suceava a little bit more. And one more thing to mention, I like the density here because reality is that the economic center was definitely in this area, especially in the 1400s, and it's literally the reason why the Ottomans, whenever they invaded Moldova, they destroyed, either the Ottomans destroyed or the Moldovans destroyed, and as a means of preventing the Ottomans from destroying, they destroyed the south part of Moldova all the way up to Vaslui, which honestly Vaslui probably never recovered. Vaslui is like the joke of Romania. It's like, how do I put this? It's like the Florida of the US, Vaslui, really, but it's just really, really poor. That's because it literally never recovered. I don't know what happened, man, but it's just poverty incorporated. And you know what? I'm actually going to go to Vaslui and show you what I'm talking about because I am not capping, boys. Welcome everybody to Vaslui County, a beacon of hope and society. And let me see where the outhouse is. Yeah, look at that. That's an outhouse. That's where people take a poop. Okay, I'm pretty sure there's like 5 toilets in the entirety of the county, and all of them in the mayor's office. Now clearly I am exaggerating, but you can tell from this, obviously I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but you can tell from just this that it's a special place. Okay, should I show you my town, Kudalbi, where I'm from? Look at the difference. You cannot even compare the two. Look at this fancy fence over here. Look at this so yeah, it's very different. Okay, it's clearly way more advanced. Okay, my point is that shut up, bro. You be quiet right now. All right, so back to the actual div diary. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. I just went on a rant over there. There's a lot of density for locations in Wallachia too. That's really nice to see, and in Transylvania, also in Hungary as well. There's a high density around the Serbian bits. Holy mother, there's a massive density there. Anatolia as well, of course, Greece as well, massive density. I'm curious what you guys think about these locations and how well do you think they were depicted, because obviously I'm not Greek, I'm not Serbian, I'm not Bulgarian, so I wouldn't know, right? Oh, also in Bulgaria, I would recommend that you make it this divided, Pangalia, whatever the hell that is, have it split in half, because it will make it easier to, you know, split areas in case somebody wants to form Greater Romania and wants to give the southern part of this to Bulgaria. Just saying, okay? I'm not just saying this because I'm gonna do that, but that's probably what that's literally why. Can we take a second here, all my Romanians? Can you tell everybody else in chat, I mean in the comment section, what this means? Orașul de Floci. This literally means pubic hair city. What the fuck? Who came up with this, man? You cannot make this shit up, bro. I swear. To be fair, Floch can also mean fleece, and that actually does mean fleece city technically. And it was a historical city. It was a trade town, an important trade town actually. Orașul de Floci. It's just funny to see it written like that because, you know, Floch has 2 meanings, and everybody in their right mind would think it's the pubics one. Not the actual fleece one. Keep this. This is accurate. This is actually accurate. Kudalbi, not so much. But still keep it because I like it. But Orașul de Floci, keep it because this is actually historically accurate. This was one of the most important trade hubs at the time. Brăila, I wouldn't put as a city at all personally in 1337. Not only because I'm from Galați and we hate people from Brăila, but the city did not exist in 1337. It was established in 1339. It was called as Drinago actually, and it was established by Catalan and Castilian merchants. To be fair, they was established as a small trade city on the Danube, and then it grew, and obviously they were a minority, just a few of them, probably like 50 Catalan and Castilians, and the trade attracted a lot of locals, meaning it grew an actual trade town, and from that trade town you got the city of Brăila today. Anyway, I mean, to be fair, it doesn't have to be just cities that existed in 1337, right, as the location name. So I guess from that perspective, maybe it's fine in that case even to keep Kudal. Oh, and actually we have a detailed map of the locations. Holy snaps, let me check this. Oh, that is delicious. Look at that. Oh, that is delicious. It pains me to see this misspelled though. Please change the V to a B. I would appreciate that. I like that Galați was perfectly spelled, Brăila too, but this is just weird. See, this is what it's actually known as on the map itself. Kudalbi. Also, another small recommendation is to maybe add more locations in Dobroja. So this area here, maybe add something else between Hârșova and Tulcea, maybe another location, because there's some significant differences between the two, and Tulcea should primarily, actually even Tulcea I would divide in two, to be honest, because one side of it would be marshes, the other side would be mountains or hills, if anything, right? So you wouldn't have the same terrain everywhere in Tulcea, for example. Pavia says, this week we're posting the general map of the region along with more detailed maps that can be seen if you click on the spoiler button. A starting comment is that the density of Hungary is noticeably not very high. The reason is that it was one of the first European maps that we made, and we based it upon the historical counties. Therefore, I'm already saying in advance that this will be an area that we want to give more density when we do the review of the region. That's good. That's good. I actually did notice that Hungary does have bigger, fewer locations actually. Apart from that, you may have noticed on the more detailed map that Crete appears in one, whilst not being present in the previous one because of the zooming. The island will appear next week along with Cyprus, but I wanted to make an early sneak peek of the location, given that is possible with the zoom closer level. Apart from that, I'm also saying in advance that we want to make an important review of the Aegean Islands, so do not take them as reference for anything. Oh, interesting. Okay, let me actually check this. So Crete actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 locations. That's cool. I'm assuming Crete is going to be one province onto itself. Let's check. Cannot check because they cut off the map, so I don't know if it's one province, but I would assume that it is. Now the terrain, most of these areas are going to be continental, with the Mediterranean borders being Mediterranean, right, adjacent to the Mediterranean. We got some cold, arid, some subtropical, and here and there a little bit of Arctic in the mountainous areas of the Carpathian Mountains. As for the actual terrain, we have hills and mountains all around the Transylvanian areas. Then we got flatlands in the Pannonian Basin. We got flatlands in most of Moldova, most of Wallachia, with some hills around there as well. We got hills and mountains around the entirety of Greece, Albania, South Serbia, Macedonia, hills in the middle of Bulgaria, a little bit of flatlands here and there in the Balkans, as in below the Danube Balkans. I like this. This is going to be one of the most active from a combat perspective area of the game, especially in the first 100 years of the campaign. So that's going to be some very interesting plays that we're going to be doing, tactics and everything, using the terrain to our advantage. I am so hyped for this. You guys have no freaking clue how hyped I am for this. We do have a little bit of forest, mostly around the mountains, and we got some wood. Pretty much self-explanatory here. I do want to mention something that in Moldova, again, from historical records, I will reference again Dimitrie Cantenier's book, Descriptio Moldave, in which he mentions that most of Moldova was woods, not grasslands. It started slowly getting its woods and forests cut, and the reason why in the 1300s it was not centralized and nobody even bothered with it is because it was essentially just like not the most accessible area and not really anything of massive interest for anyone to really bother to even conquer those lands, because the interest bits were usually the areas that were like grasslands, farmlands, where people would have a lot of agriculture. But that being said, if we are not able to change the terrain type from woods to grasslands or farmlands or whatever in EU5, then sure, keep it like this. However, I do hope that we have the ability to start with forest and be able to change to farmlands, the same province, or start with farmlands and be able to change to forest by planting trees or something of the sort. I really hope that's going to be an option, because that would be really awesome to do. Could say you could, for example, if you're planning to, you know, need some defensive bonuses, wooden up an area of your country, right, and build some fortifications. And opposite, if you know that one area of your country is safe, cut the trees, make it farmlands, get the most productivity out of those lands. So Hungary has 3.7 million population, Wallachia 400,000, 300 in Bosnia, and 1 million almost in Serbia. Holy shit, that's a lot of people. Almost 1 million as well in the Bulgarians, and 1.2 in Byzantium. So it's pretty evened out actually between these bigger nations in the Balkans. But as we all know, you got to cut the Byzantines in half because they're probably going to be fighting on opposite sides of each other. The trade nodes are a little bit like this. We have Constantinople, Naples, Venice, Ragusa as its own trade node, and Pest. Resource map mode, we've got a lot of livestock apparently. The main theme that I'm getting from this is lumber and livestock around the Balkans. So it's basically like a mini East Europe, I guess you could say. I guess that's pretty accurate to be fair. We do have a lot of stone, iron, silver even in the Carpathian Mountains, gold over here in the north of Transylvania, more gold, gold again, gold again. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 gold provinces. We have some wild game, some dyes, both in the north, in the south of Transylvania and in the south of Wallachia. We got some fruits, horses, iron, wheat, fish, salt. Let me see, anything interesting around here? Copper in the south here. I would say that there should be some gold around here. Roșia Montana. This has been historically a gold mine excavated from the times of the Roman Empire. The reason the Romans invaded Dacia was because they had a lot of gold and they wanted the gold. And they were extracting this gold from a few mines. One of them was the Roșia Montana area mine. Now to zoom out a little bit, this province would be roughly here where the lumber is, I guess you could say, or maybe even below the lumber, or where the iron is. I'm not sure. One of the two would be where the gold is. But this is a historical spot where gold has been extracted since Roman times at various periods of time, including the 1300s. And one of the reasons why there's such an intense fight over who was here first and who owned Transylvania and so on between Romanians and Hungarians, right? Because it was one of the more important economic hubs in the area, the Transylvanian region itself. Now, we do have a little bit of lead in Serbia from what I can see here, and in Bosnia. Wait, no, that's actually also Serbia. So Serbia's got a monopoly on freaking lead, bro. Oh no, we got some more lead in the north and the Carpathians. Any more in the south? We got lead in Naples too. Okay, we got silk in Naples as well. A lot of wine, spices. Is that the first spices I see actually? Whoa, Naples is the first time I see spices, guys. Look at that, they got spices over here. Yeah, I don't think I've seen spices before, did I? Ooh, interesting, very interesting. Also notice there's more gold in the northern parts next to Bohemia, and that's pretty much it for the raw materials map mode. The religious map mode, we have the divide between the western and the eastern Christians. We have the Christians in Bosnia, Bogomilis, the pink stripes both in Bosnia and Macedonia. Paulicians we also have in Thrace, and the Jewish population do not pass the threshold percentage to appear on the map, but there are plenty of communities around the region. So to take a little bit of a closer look, these are the Paulicians here in Thrace. These are the Bogomilists. We have some Catholics in Albania. We got the Christiani. We have the Orthodox and the Catholics fighting all over the Transylvanian parts. And I gotta say that this, in my opinion, is not very accurate because there were more Romanians in 1337 than there were Germans and Hungarians in Transylvania. And this kind of doesn't show that very well, or at all for that matter. And speaking of, Transylvanian should not be a separate culture. It should be just all Romanian in all three parts of the Romanian principalities. Which leads me to the final part of this, which is the culture map mode. And this is where the war is gonna start, boy. Before I actually open the map, this is what Pavia says. Hungary is full of different minorities. Transylvania especially is an interesting space. They have a mix of Hungarians, Transylvanians, which are the Romanian-speaking inhabitants, Transylvanian Germans, and Zekeli people. We have divided the southern Slavic-speaking region into their dialectal families of Slovene, Croatian, Bosnian, and Serbian. South Balkans is divided between Bulgarians, Albanians, and Greek. And we also have Dalmatian, Romanians, Sclavines, Arvanites, Cumans, Yas, Ashkenazi, and Romaniotti Jews. I want to make a bit of an addendum here. A Romanians should be in the same group as Romanians, or as they seem to call it here, Valachians. There really are a buttload of different cultures hashed out all around the Balkans, so this is going to be a complete cluster schnitzel of discussions on the forums. I already know that. I got my issues too. I'm sure a lot of other people have their issues too. Now, we do seem to have a Romanians right over here in the mountains in Greece. That's accurate. A Romanians are basically what's left of the old Imperial Roman Empire Latin speakers that lived in the eastern parts of the Roman Empire. A lot of them survived by just going into the mountains and becoming shepherds, and that's why most of the A-Romanian communities live in the mountain areas or the very hilly areas, etc. There's a lot of them in this particular part of Greece. They are the second largest culture group after the Greeks, and I'm actually curious, what is the hashed out blue? I genuinely don't know what that is. I'm really curious. Is that some type of I don't want to even assume because I don't know what it is, honestly. But I'm curious what you guys think this hashed out blue is supposed to represent here. On the coastline of the Adriatic, we have quite a little bit of Dalmatian. We also see here in the Republic of, I'm guessing, Ragusa, whatever it's going to be, there is a Dalmatian predominantly. And then we have along the islands here a lot of Dalmatians. Dalmatians, again, are remnants as well as the A-Romanians and the Istro and the Megleno-Romanians. All of these guys are remnants of Roman imperial rule. Eventually, the Slavs replaced most of the Latin-speaking people, which were the dominant culture in this area of what we know as Yugoslavia today. But that was a graduate process, took many centuries since the 600s and so on. So by the 1300s, very few of those people remained, and they were, as seen here, the Dalmatians, Istro-Romanians and the Istrian parts, Megleno-Romanians and A-Romanians. We also have quite a little bit of Albanians in the southern parts of Serbia, with the Serbs being the majority of people here. A mixture of Serbs, Albanians, and Bulgarians in Macedonia, because everybody knows Macedonians are basically just Bulgarians that think that they're not. Another culture that would be in Macedonia would be Megleno-Romanians. So these are the, again, Latin speakers, remnants of the Latin Empire within this particular area. But they would likely be like 2,000-3,000 people. So I don't even know if it's worth even adding that culture group in EU5 really at this point. There's like 1,000 left today. today, right, in 2024. So I'm assuming like 3,000-4,000 would be back then, max. Quick question. What the hell is this, man? I don't know what this is also. I'm actually curious. What is this, bro? And then what is this? Are these Albanians? This should be A-Romanians, because there was a sizable population of A-Romanians in the mountain areas of Bulgaria in 1300s. So I'm assuming these are going to be A-Romanians. These are Greeks. Why are there Greeks in Tulcea? This would be primarily a mixture of Bulgarians and Romanians. Not so many Greeks. Definitely would not be Greek as the second culture group. But I'm curious why. I have to look this up actually, because I know that there were definitely Greeks, of course, remnants of the Byzantine Empire government, which owned these areas for quite some time, and there was definitely a sizable amount of Greeks. Then, of course, we have Bulgarians and Romanians mixture around the border between Wallachia and Bulgaria. Same here, we have some Romanians in the Serbian parts, some Serbians in the Romanian parts. The Timish area or the Banat area was very, very multicultural at the time. It was always been very multicultural, but I'm not sure if these are Germans, because that would not really be accurate though, because in 1300 most of the Germans would be around this particular area. They would be around Sibiu, they would be around Brasov. This was their homelands, right? This is where they initially migrated from. They migrated when they got permission from the Hungarian crown to colonize these lands to get rid of those pesky Romanians, right? Which Romanians seem to be majority in only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just a couple of counties here, with Hungarians being the majority in most of these. This would not be accurate, okay? I know this is a age-old debate, and I can give you 100 sources. All of them are going to be Romanian sources, and I'm sure Hungarians will give you 100 sources too, and all of them are going to be Hungarian sources. But you got to look at it from outside sources and think logically. If Hungarians were the majority here, consider the fact that the Hungarians gave no rights to Romanians for 500-600 years. They also intentionally tried to colonize and outnumber Romanians in this region, and they tried to get rid of Romanians multiple times in this regions. And despite that, Romanians were the majority still at the beginning of the 1900s. If the Romanians were a minority in 1300s, they would not exist in the 1900s, because that's exactly how it's been in history. Generally speaking, and there's a lot of examples of this, when a country takes over another country and they're a different ethnic group, different culture, and they are the majority in 500 years, there's going to be no other minorities. And not only that, but we actually do have historical sources, and we even have ancient Roman and Byzantine sources. Most of our sources that show that the Romanian versions are correct are from Byzantine sources, contemporary for that time Byzantine sources that depict the Transylvanian area as predominantly Romanian speaking. And you have to remember that the reason Romanians exist is because when the Roman Empire conquered Dacia, what happened was they conquered the Transylvanian parts. They didn't conquer Moldova, they didn't conquer this area, they conquered Transylvania and Oltenia, and that was the heartland of the Roman province of Dacia Felix, as it was called, and that's where the Romanian people were formed as an amalgamation of Dacians that were assimilated to the Latin culture, as well as a lot of immigrants from various parts of the Roman Empire that were arriving in Transylvania in search of gold, because Transylvania was like California is to the United States, well, like California was to the United States in the 1800s, exactly the same. And we have a lot of written accounts from authors within the Roman Empire during those periods that mention that a massive influx of colonists came into Transylvania. Not only that, but it was standard practice for Roman legionnaires after they did their service in the Roman legions to get lands along the Carpathian borders in Transylvania. Why was that? Well, you fought in the legion for 30 years or for as long as you fought, and then you got land in here at the border of the empire. You're gonna get raided. That's a guarantee, right? There are legions that are paid to defend, but you were also gonna stand up and you're gonna form conscript militias or levies or whatever you want to call it to defend your farms, because you don't want to lose your farms. That was basically a tactical way of intensely colonizing this area with Roman legionnaires to defend the borders of the empire, because it was easy to defend the Carpathian Mountains. That's why they didn't even bother with Moldova and with these areas here. They basically just stopped around this hilly, basically part of the central part of Wallachia, and they just went along some rivers and so on. Basically, natural defenses, easy to repel barbarians. Dacia is known as one of the fastest Romanized areas of the Roman Empire. There's a really interesting book called A Brief History of Romanians by Neagu Djuvara. Recommend you guys check it out. He is a really brilliant historian and academic that explains this process of Romanization Romanization. And we also have accounts of Romanians in Transylvania existing in the 600s, 700s, 800s, attested by Byzantine sources from the heartlands of Transylvania. The Romanized Romanians, or we know as Romanians today, would have been Daco-Romans during the 900s, I guess. Well, 800s really. They would have been Romanians by the 900s, actually. They started spreading into Moldova, spreading into the rest of Wallachia afterwards, when these areas got ravaged by the Goths, by the Slavs. After the Slavs and the Goths destroyed all these areas, which were mostly forest, the Romanians started spreading into them and basically colonizing them, sort of, from the heartland of Transylvania, which is the historical heartland of the Romanian people. Then the Hungarians came and they just needed a way of saying that, oh, we came here, there was nobody. It's like the Americans saying, oh, we went to the New World, there was nobody there. The literal Hungarian history books say that there was nobody here. This whole land was empty. When was there ever an empty land in Europe? Ever? That makes no sense. Use your brain, guys. Come on. Saying it was empty, there was nobody here. Oh, and the Romanians started migrating here after we arrived from the south of the Danube. Okay, buddy, sure. It was empty, but they started migrating after you guys came for some reason. They didn't migrate there before. Holy snaps, man. It's wild. Also, the theory of the Romanians migrating from the south of the Danube doesn't make any sense, because in the 12th century, when their supposed migration happened from the south, majority of the south were Slavs, with very few actual Vlachs or Romanians living there at that point. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the origins, okay? I do think there should be significantly more Romanian Transylvanians, and they should not be distinguished as Transylvanians, because, for example, when Moldova was established by Dragos, the Hungarian king, you know what he did? He took a bunch of Romanian noblemen from Transylvania and used them to establish Moldova. Dragos was a Romanian nobleman from Transylvania that established the March of Moldova, which was a march of the Kingdom of Hungary. He did that because it would have been easier for the guy that speaks the exact same language and has the exact same customs as the people there to control the people there. And speaking of, Maramuresh also had a majority of Romanians, because Dragos, you guessed it, most of his people were from Maramuresh that went over and became the nobility in Moldova. And also there's a few accounts of, again, remember what I talked earlier, the Polish king fighting against Brandenburg. Well, the Chronicle mentions not only the Romanians from the Moldovan part, but also Romanians from the Maramuresh part. And the fact that the nobility in Maramuresh was Romanian at the time indicates that that was definitely a majority Romanian area at that particular time. As for the Zecilis here, they were obviously here. There's actually a very beautiful history about the Zecili people in Transylvania. So there's a few theories. There's no concrete proof of what the actual origins of the Zecilis are. Initially, it was said that they are remnants of the Huns that merged with the Hungarians after the Hungarians entered the Pannonian Basin. That is not very accurate and not historically plausible, because after the Huns were defeated, the Avar Khanate actually took over the entirety of this basin, and whatever was left of the Huns got integrated with an Avar society, which was here for a few hundred years. So it's likely that this could have been some of them descended from the Avars, not the Huns, but the more likely version is that these were either border people sent to protect the border areas of the Carpathian Basin from invading nations. So as such, they were Hungarians that were sent here. There's also another theory that they're Hungarians that fled from the main Hungarian group due to the fact that they wanted to live a free life in the mountains. Reality is we don't know. We just know that they exist. They were here. This is actually a very accurate depiction of them, but this is a more of a 1900 depiction. I wouldn't say this is a 1300 depiction. I would not know what a 1300 depiction is, so I'd say this is as accurate as you could probably get it though. Transylvanian Germans, I would not make the majority in any of the realms here. They were a significant amount, but they were not the majority. The cities of Brasov and Sibiu, we do know that they were pretty much entirely German, but everything around the countryside was Romanians. It was not Germans, and the countryside outnumbered massively the cities. And a lot of the workers in those cities, like the guards, the literal people working the streets and shit. They were Romanians from the village coming to work and then buggering off when the city was about to close its gates during nighttime. The eastern parts would be majority Hungarian, that is for sure. The Timish area would probably be a mixture between Transylvanian, Serbian, and Hungarian. I don't know the ratios, but it would be about 30-30-30 more or less, I guess. I would even sprinkle in some other minorities here just for fun. And you would have for sure some Cumans and Yas, albeit in 1300s the Cumans likely already spoke Hungarian. They were very Hungarianized, so they would pretty much just be Cuman in name, not necessarily actually speak a different language. So they would basically be a part of the same culture group as the Hungarians would be. Fun fact, the leader of the Wallachians, which also Wallachia was established thanks to Hungary, thank you for that by the way guys, he has a Cuman last name, Basarab, which means maybe a few generations prior to him, his origins were Cumans. So maybe some Cuman noblemen or Cuman warriors that rose to nobility rank within Transylvania that became Romanized, which again shows the fact that he was Romanian, spoke Romanian, but had a Cuman last name and was originally from Transylvania, tells us that majority of people in Transylvania were Romanians. Otherwise, he'd be Hungarian. Am I right? Considering especially that he had a Cuman last name. Would make more sense. And speaking of, in 1337, Wallachia was independent. It just gained its independence a few years prior to the start date at one of the more famous battles between the Hungarians and the Wallachians, Battaglia de la Posada, as we know it in Romanian, or basically a battle that happened somewhere in which the Hungarian army was crossing through a narrow strait and the Romanians started throwing rocks and sticks and EU4 virgins at them from up top on the mountain and the hills above, and just destroyed the Hungarians in a disgusting smart ambush, some would say. And I also just noticed that we have Bavarian in Austria and South Bavarian. I think somebody mentioned this in one of the previous dev diaries when we had a culture map for the German areas or for Italy, that it would be North and South Bavarian. So that's accurate. We got North Bavarian, South Bavarian. Hope you enjoyed this dev diary. I had a lot of fun with it. And remember guys, all of my Balkan brothers and sisters out there, no matter how much we fight, we're all literally the fucking same people, okay? I'm gonna say it. We speak different languages. We disagree on what our origins are. Whoa, it's Hungarian, it's Romanian, it's Serbian. But the reality is that we're basically the same freaking personality. We eat the same foods. We have the same tradition. We have the same old grandmas judging us on the side of the bench when you go back home and asking, whose kid are you? And then we all eat a different version of the same 99.99% alcohol, be it rakia, tsuika, or whatever you want to call it, palinka. It's the same shit, guys. We just, come on, man. We should make a country called the Balkans and conquer the world. I said it. There, I freaking said it right now. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one.